Hello, everybody, and welcome. My name is Lou. Welcome back to what some people are calling episode 11 of Brits and Yanks Talk Trek, podcast for Trekkies, Trekkers, and everything in between. Brought together as a group of friends from both sides of the pond with an obsession about a little game called Star Trek Fleet Command. But we are not going to be talking solely about Star Trek Fleet Command tonight. We are obviously going to be exploring a topic about Star Trek and obviously talking about the cultural differences between the US and the UK as well, as we have both sides of the pond represented here. Please share with us all of your topic ideas and suggestions and feedback for the pod. We want all that so that we obviously can get a little shot in the arm from all the lovely things that you are all saying about the podcast. Thank you so much for that. Share this out with your friends. Share it out with at least one friend. Pick a friend, somebody that you think might like it, might find us even remotely entertaining, and get them to download it on their device. Let's try and build up those numbers and get that done. And consider becoming a member as well. We do have memberships at itslube.com where you can sign up. Just a coffee a month. That's basically what it is. $3 a month is our lowest tier membership, where you can help support financially the ongoing development and creation of this podcast. And obviously leave us as best a review as you can, but only if it's 6 out of 5 stars. Anything less than that, I am not interested. Only joking. Okay, let's talk about who's here. So obviously I'm here myself. We have got Mr. Perfection himself. We've got Silvers. How are you today? Have you had a good day?
I've had a very productive day.
What have you been doing?
Lots of stuff at the church, work day, and I'm exhausted.
God, yeah, you've basically got 9 jobs now, haven't you? You've just got far too many things to do. I think you should give one up, but definitely nothing to do with me. Stewie, the storyteller, how are you, buddy?
What a coincidence. I've been at church all day as well.
Bullshit.
Yeah, I haven't really.
No, I know you haven't. I think I need to turn that into a soundbite. I think it's sent to a soundbite. I think I'm going to press that a few times when people speak. But how are you, Stewie? You having a good day, mate?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, really good. Thank you. King of the Graphic himself. How are you? And how's our wave defense merch coming? I saw you doing a little bit of work on it earlier.
I'm doing good today. Unfortunately, the information that we have so far is still incomplete, so we haven't been able to recomplete the updated wave defense merch to reflect all the new mirror universe hostiles yet.
Okay. So anybody who has got data, and we're after the 50 waves, aren't we? It's not necessarily the smaller ones; it's the big ones that we're after, isn't it?
Yep.
So the bigger waves. Anybody that's got any details on them, hit us up in PM and we can get that sorted. And I am delighted to invite a special guest today. We've got the professor himself. We've got Putzz from the other side of the pond. He is a Yank. How are you, Putzz? Welcome back. I can't remember which episode of Brits and Yanks Talk Trek you were on last time, but I'm absolutely delighted to have you back. And how are you?
I am doing great. Thank you. Thank you for having me on again. I had so much fun the first time that I had to come back for a second helping.
He's having fun, Stewie. We need to change the way that we do this. That's not our intention.
Yeah, I can sort that out. Don't worry.
And Putzz was here for episode 3 when we talked about the metric system.
It was episode 3. See, we've done that many now. Obviously, we're on 11 now. We're practically professionals at all this kind of malarkey, aren't we? But welcome in, Putzz. Welcome in the rest of the panel. Thank you. And let's dive in. As we do, let's talk about our Star Trek Fleet Command topic. And the topic that's been posed today is we're going to talk about Picards over time. We're going to talk about all the different Picards that have been launched into the game. How do we use them, if we use them at all? How they vary differently. And I think one of the killer questions is do we have too many? Now, to add a little bit of a background to this, obviously you might think this is a Star Trek game at heart. Picard was probably in there from day one, but it wasn't. Quick history lesson. This game started off in the Kelvin timeline. So it started off with Chris Pine's Kirk, and that was basically all we had for, God, Stewie, how long do you reckon it was? Do you reckon it was about 18 months before we got our first crossover into a new platform? Do you reckon about 18 months?
Well, it was long enough that when they did release him, they made a big hype about him. I mean, he was much more expensive shardful to get and everything, wasn't it? Because of it. So.
That was a shocker, wasn't it? That was an absolute shocker.
Terrible.
God. And the first Picard that came in was literally part of the Next Generation set, wasn't it? And it was Next Gen Picard. So, Candy, tell us a little bit about Next Gen Picard, the OG one. Do you use him, and where do you think he has some sort of value? Tell us a little bit about him, the first ever Picard in the game.
Next Gen Picard, was there, I actually don't remember if there was a Next Generation Picard in that. I thought the Jean-Luc Picard was the first one.
Sorry, I
that
do.
they did.
Yeah, I do mean that. Obviously, sorry, my bad. You can have a correction, Chan.
You passed the test.
Yeah, I was like, I'm like blanking. I was like, I don't remember ever seeing a next gen. I'm like, that's what prompted the long pause. I was like, there wasn't one.
What was the actual group that they were? There was a group of next gen officers, wasn't they? And it wasn't called. And it was so there was the next gen. Crew.
We had the commons.
Yeah, of course we did. So there was the next gen crew, but we never got a Picard. But then there is the TNG crew. That is the actual name of the officer set. But I mean, the Picard from the TNG crew. How does he work, and what do you use him for?
I mean, so TNG crew, Jean-Luc Picard, his captain's ability increases the overall effectiveness of all the officers' abilities, beginning at 20% at level 1, and then his officer ability increases your critical hit damage itself by 5%, starting at level 1. I mean, myself, I use him predominantly with solo armadas as a primary. It took me, after his release into the game, it actually took me quite some time to actually acquire him. So he is actually still just a tier 1 for me. So I haven't been able to take full advantage of him the way I really would like to.
No, and a big part of that is down to what Stewie was saying earlier. Stewie, do you want to elaborate a little bit what you were saying about the counting things and why it's so difficult to source?
No, not really. Yeah, I mean, but it was just the fact when they released him, I think he was, I can't remember.
180.
Silvers will know because it will be in his spreadsheet, actually.
180 shards.
180, yeah, compared to, I think, did we have one at 120 as a maximum before then, or was 100 the previous maximum? I can't remember now.
I think like 5. I think 5 was higher than 100. I think there was some that were higher than 100. I can't remember.
But
off
nothing
the top of my head.
in that sort of,
nothing close to that. That was like
no.
1.5.
And it wasn't even the fact that he was necessarily amazing compared to anything else, because he was basically like Pike, but the way the multiplier worked was slightly different. I mean, the end result was the same, but you could use Pike on his own better than you could Jean-Luc Picard. But by the time you paired him up with Bev and Pike with Moreau, then you ended up with similar sort of results in the end. But it was just because it was Jean-Luc Picard, and they thought, yep, let's put the count up on that one. And it was a real pain in the butt to get hold of at first.
And it was like one of the first times, I feel, I don't know if you agree, Putzz, but it was like one of the first times where they tried to sort of incorporate a proper second grinding crew element, because obviously it allowed you to use Pike Moreau somewhere, then you could use Picard Bev somewhere else. I think it was probably one of the first times where they really tried to make a secondary grinding crew.
Oh, I absolutely agree. When he first came out, it was, now we have a second true grinding crew. The 180 shards to unlock was unprecedented. It made him feel like he was so much more valuable. I don't know. Over the years, though, I think he's probably become less and less and less valuable. At least for me. I do run him from time to time, but I actually prefer Pike Moreau. If I'm going to grab just one set of the two, I will go for that first.
Me too. I mean, my go-to day-to-day grinding crew is still Pike Moreau and E-Data. That's still my go-to out there grinding crew. I wouldn't tend to use Picard Beverly because of the way that the synergy works. Go on, Silvers.
That difference is only because of the way that the rare officer ability works. Moreau or Beverly, in terms of mitigation, the way that Moreau works is a reduction of the enemy's stats, whereas the Beverly is an increase in your own stats, and they work differently based on percentages or percentages of stats. So that's why Moreau is more effective for a lot of players.
Absolutely. I mean, you would think, wouldn't you, at the outset, I mean, just to sort of sunset this particular Picard, because we've got another 47 to go through, you would think that Picard would be a lot better than Pike because he actually has a worthwhile, not saying that ship XP is worthless that you get with Pike's officer ability, but he actually has a proper combat ability below deck as well, doesn't he?
Yeah, it's the critical damage.
So no, it is. I mean, that was like our first iteration. And I think what we'll do is we'll go around. I think we've got enough for us all to do one, but all of us to pick a Picard and just go through how they work, whether they use him or not. And I'll start with you, Stewie. Pick another Picard. Tell me about him. Tell me if you use him, why you use him, and if you think they're a decent addition.
Mirror Picard.
Good shout.
Just came out. PvP. He's definitely a huge step into leveling the PvP, and I don't mean by bringing overall balance, because he's effective against all. It's the fact that you're getting very, very close to having a rock paper scissor again. Okay, where Carol, strike team initially came through and just wiped the board clean.
Yeah.
Okay.
PvP broke with strike teams.
Basically, yeah. Okay. And then they brought out Carol for their sins. Okay. And that was just a complete and utter swing the other way, and you literally didn't need any other crew.
And for a newer player, obviously Stewie means Carol Freeman as opposed to Carol the officer
Marcus.
from as opposed to Carol Marcus.
Carol Freeman, and then the subsequent officers that came out with them, the lower decks ones that worked in synergy and stuff like that, below deck to add some extra stuff. It was just a broken dynamic for a while, but we were told that it was meant to clear the slate, give us a clean sheet, and I'm going to be honest, we were all very cynical about it. We went, no, it's just giving us a one trick, one crew does all sort of things. But what it actually did do is, I think it was the first step in the rebalancing of PvP, because what we now have is a crew that quite happily wipes out Carol. Okay, but ironically can have problems against strike teams.
Yeah, but adding the RNGE crewing for success strategy a little bit more back to PvP, because obviously what those mirror officers are focusing on massively is Apex Barrier. It's not necessarily the officers which have fixed it, is it? It's the application of Apex Barrier, which obviously is their main ability, which has been able to be utilized with it, and then they're using abilities like Assimilate Artley to proc that, so they're adding that other dynamic to it as well. I mean, because the big thing with PvP, the reason that it was so busted was because basically it was the last person to press the attack button and battles were over in one round, and it's that one round element that broke PvP. I mean, you go out with a mirror and we see different results, don't we, Stewie?
Yeah, we do, and it's not just that. It's always been about the mechanic, because if you think back to strike team days, the mechanic that made them so powerful was the extra shot.
Yeah.
Okay. That was the mechanic. That's what made them powerful. Then they said, well, how can we counter this? I know, let's go crits. Okay. And crits became the next mechanic of choice. The problem was, thanks to the ISO cascade, that was just humongous. And they were warned by the CCs, Alex, aka Ripper. He did say to them, goes, guys, listen, you really need to be careful with this because of critical. And they went, no, it's fine. It's all good. We've got it sussed. We've got it sussed. And boy, was he right, because the biggest problem was criticals.
Really so.
And then what did we see for a year since?
Crit reduction.
There's been all of crit reduction, absolutely. And then they think, oh gosh, have we gone a bit too far? So what do we get? We get additional crit, and then we get crit flaws. So we always end up at that, trying to get to that baseline. And now what they've done is says, well, look, if we can't beat them, join them, let them do their damage, we'll just reduce it. Okay. And we've got the Apex Barrier now, so it has started to come around full circle a bit now. I mean, you're never going to go back to your
Marcus,
Shavnik, and Marcus and Shavnik Khan. It's never really going to go back to that, because they are just so underpowered now. But in general, things have got a little bit juicier again.
Indeed. Indeed. So, I mean, Many Picard, I love flying him in things like incursions. Obviously, it was cancelled last month. But I think in incursions, PvP events, I mean, I'm having some really, really good results with him. But like you say, I can still die to a similar strength ship with the appropriate strike team. Do you know what I mean? And I love that. I'm more than happy to die using what is in essence now the new meta crew. I'm more than happy to die because that proves that PvP is fixing. I'm not going to say it's fixed. It needs a hell of a lot of work before I can say that it's fixed, but it is in the process of being patched together. And I think this is a really good sticky plaster for us to do. Okay, Silvers, give us another Picard and let's talk about him.
I think the obvious choice is going to be Enterprise E Picard, primarily for the loot increase in PvE grinding. He has become such an important officer since his crew, the 4 Enterprise Z officers, came into the game, and that's primarily because of the loot that you get with synergy of data. You can get 100% loot, but you also get isolytic damage, cascade damage, which is just going to multiply your damage and make it easier to kill targets.
Absolutely. I mean, the go-to, apart from some of the specialty crews, for example, like Archer with full synergy, obviously he's really good against the Zindi. Do you know what I mean? That's sort of like that's like a normal crew. That you could add there's others that are specific to a particular loop, which could potentially be more beneficial and get you to a higher amount. But general PvE grinding, the go-to crew is, can you kill it with a loot crew? And if it's the normal style hostile, you go NE Picard, NE Data, and 5 of 11. Do you know what I mean? You say, go try it with that first. If you can grind and do what you need to do with that crew, that's the best way for you to go because you're going to get the most loot in the least amount of kills. And then you start turning that back, don't you, and work back towards the generic hostile crews. It's like the go-to. Try that first. It's the go-to crew now for pretty much any loop in the game that doesn't have a specialty loot officer. Because the only reason that we're out there grinding in it's for loot. It's for reputation. And remember, loot bonuses also affect reputation as well. So I think it's a really good officer set into. I mean, I even love Riker. Talking about the set, I love Riker for the speed ability. Riker with Picard one side and Data the other side for the still get their isolytic bonuses. Do you know what I mean? They're fantastic in like things like waves. Do you know what I mean? I think the NE set, I think it was one of the best ones launched for a long time. Don't you agree?
Yeah, I use all 4 of the officers. I use Troy below deck for the critical damage. That's always on the ship that I have Hugh, because I'm going to get criticals and I'm going to just make those criticals stronger. I use both Picard and Data for isolytic and loot, and I use Riker for impulse speed and waves. So that's a great officer set, and it's why this version of Picard is very important in today's game.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, I mean, Silvers is talking about using Troy. Troy outclasses even Odo. Odo being an epic officer offering crit damage against hostiles. Do you know what I mean? She just outclasses him even at the early tiers. If you've got a high tier, shoot.
Odo works everywhere.
That's
not just hostiles.
That's what I'm saying. So I'm saying you would use Troy in a hostile situation. It would outclass Odo in that situation. If you're using it in PvP or Armadas, then Troy wouldn't work.
Correction again, Troy still works in Armadas.
You knew what I was trying to say.
I still won one, so I'll take it.
Yeah, you still definitely got one. Okay, Putzz, I will let you. There are 2 left. Putzz, I'll let you take the next one. Talk about a Picard for us.
Well, I'm gonna have to. I'm down to only one because I don't own Picard. I own Dixon Hill, and I run him.
2 left then.
There's 2 left now.
There is 2.
Oh, okay, there's 2 left.
Go on, shoot. Dixon Hill, great show. I forgot about that.
Me too.
Yeah, I run Dixon Hill actually below deck on my Killer Amalgam. They let my crew mine in my Amalgam wherever I go. If I'm not actively PvPing, and then I check in on it every once in a while, and I kill OPC and then go home. But yeah, I use them just to get a little bit of extra, mining ability.
Yeah, I mean, and he actually has a shield mitigation increase, doesn't he, every round as well? He's actually gotten, it's not a great officer ability, but he has got a workable officer ability while mining. He's just an outright mining officer, reducing shield mitigation. I think reducing opponent's shield mitigation by a percentage. And I think it's actually on a per round basis. So he does have some uses on the bridge, but I think below deck, just getting that little bit of mining speed for below deck, it's decent, isn't it? I mean, it's not going to pull up any trees, is it? You're not going to think, oh my God, I need to use him everywhere that I go. But more is better, right?
Yeah, and my amalgam is maxed, so I have basically empty, extra below deck slots. So that's where it is.
I do need to clarify. Do you mine with an amalgam?
Yeah, so I send the amalgam out to mine in a system just because I have a extra slot, ship's not really doing anything. I put my PvP crew on it. So it doesn't mine fast, but that's not the point. It just sits there, and then it's there when I log in and I go, okay, who here in this system is OPC? I kill them and then go home.
Yeah, it would be destroyed in our server before you even got the chance to do it.
Yeah.
You might have an amalgam here. You get a 1 minute notice if you didn't move. Off it goes. Give that note to someone that's actually going to mine it at decent speed and get home.
But I do like the wait for OPC. It's sat mining. It's gathering some sort of resources. You send it with a PvP crew, and then you just go and fill up and go home. I quite like that as a strategy, to be honest. And obviously, there's a lot of people as well are going to see an amalgam, go try and hit it with a Vidar or a Talios. And you know what? We've seen examples, haven't we, Stewie? I mean, one of our very, very good friends does it all the time with like a killer Meridian, doesn't it? And it just never dies because he runs it with a decent PvP crew. So you might pick up a few kills and get some OC for nothing. Yeah, this is a mirror crew and a miner. But I do quite like it as a strategy Putzz. It's not something that
Shout out Cammy.
Shout out, Cammy. And it's not something that I've ever thought to do, just go and mine and wait for people to go PC with a PvP crew. I've never thought to do that, so it could be a potential little tip for everybody, for somebody to do. So there are two left. I'm happy to talk about one because I was really disappointed about it, and that is Lieutenant Picard. I'm going to talk about Lieutenant Picard. There is one left, and I will let anybody jump in who has got it. But Lieutenant Picard was launched in July of 2024, and he has captain's maneuver and an officer ability, which is strange. I thought he would be, because the whole point of it was that he wasn't a captain anymore, so I didn't think he would have a captain's maneuver. And he is a sub 35 hostile killing machine. They have introduced him to try and have an additional crew to Pike Moreau-Chen. They've tried to add him in there as an alternative grinding crew for people that maybe don't have Strange New Worlds unlocked yet because they've not unlocked and worked on their Mantis to get to that sort of a level. What I'm really disappointed about, and tell me if I'm wrong here or being stupid, is that I've had no way of sourcing him. I think if this was introduced as a speed up mechanic to help the lower players kill more things to get up higher to progress in ops, that it should have been so liberal that anybody that was 40 plus should have probably been able to max him by now, or they should have thrown him in the standard recruit chest, and anybody sub 35 should have him at tier 2, tier 3 with the full arc's worth of engagement. I think it should have been so liberal, and I think some struggle to unlock it. Some have got it to like tier 1.5. I haven't got one shard. I mean, what does anybody else think of the sourcing path for Lieutenant Picard? And I just want him in my roster because it annoys me that he's blanked out.
It's non-existent. There is no sourcing path. There might be for sub 35, but not for the majority of the player base.
No.
And I'm the same way. I find that annoying. I think it would be hilarious to see like bad crew screenshots of like 50 players, like level 50 plus players with Lieutenant Picard on the bridge just for shits and giggles.
Absolutely. But it annoys me more the fact that he is one of my only grayed out officers that I know that I can acquire in any, and he's useless to me. He's not going to do anything for me. But I just want to be able to get him ungrayed out. I just want to be able to at least get him unlocked. But I think that anybody 40 plus should have been able to max him month one. It should have been so liberal with the sourcing. Should have been so liberal. So who is the last one? Who's going to win the task and figure out who the final Picard is for us to talk about.
Putzz has already brought him up, but it's the Admiral Picard.
Yeah. So,
which is another PvP officer, just not very good. The pick officers from the Picard series, the old TNG characters came out as PvP officers, but by that time, strike teams were already dominating the market, and these officers didn't really do anything to combat that, so they didn't serve a purpose for a lot of people. And I still have 2 of those 3 not unlocked.
I beg to differ. Picard actually slotted in quite nicely with battle team, Explorer battle team, strike team.
And I was going to bring that up because he's probably the
90% basic, 90% morale.
So the strike
teams guaranteed.
Yeah, the strike teams needed full synergy to have 100% chance of procking their background ability. Picard having a 90% on his own meant that you could throw Wei Yun on one side and have the likes of Honor Worf on the other side. Do you know what I mean? So it did. So he was about the only officer. I mean,
pretty much.
Yeah, Riker and Worf useless. I thought Pick Bev was okay.
Yeah, she has placed sort of like niche uses.
Yeah,
as well.
So, but I mean, on the whole, Picard, Admiral Picard, very, very average. And I think it was a very, very lackluster set. And I think it was one of the first times where I didn't care if I unlocked any of them. I don't think I actually did any of the auctions for any of those officers. I just didn't care. I do get their shards quite regular now because of the G5 Armada chests. So I have got them up to like tier 2, tier 3 in my game, but I don't care. I mean, I don't care, and I don't think they're ever gonna grace a ship. So I think we can quite wholly say that there's a hell of a lot of Picards, all of them, some of them with a hell of a lot more use cases than what the others have. I think it's nice to see Picards added to the game, but I think we need to stop now. I think we've got enough Picards. I think there's enough other characters that we don't need to be making any more multiples. I think what they do is they rest on the laurels of it's Picard, people are going to go for it because it's Picard. Do you know what I mean? I think people are I think they're maybe resting on that a little bit, but I think they've played the hand on Picards, and I think we're running out of room for that. So that's the Picard topic. We are now going to move on to, I'm quite looking forward to this actually, we are going to move on to one of my favourite sections. Let's talk about freedom and reason. Okay, controversial topic this time. We are going to be talking about driving on the right side of the road, which is the left, or driving on the right side of the road, i.e. on the right. So this is very divisive, different across the ponds. Obviously, in the UK, we drive on the left. In the US, you drive on the right. I'm going to let you start, Silvus, before I throw in some of my interesting factoids. However, I will throw the first one out there that everybody started on the left. And does anybody know why everybody started on the left and how? And this goes back to like 1700s when structured road systems and directions of travel were important. Does anybody know why everything started on the left?
It was actually theorized to have started with the Romans during the Roman Empire. The reason being for that is that many people are right-handed. So for a Roman centurion riding on a horse or in a chariot, they would be right-handed. So their right hand would be their sword arm. So if they had to go into battle while traveling on the road, they would be able to be at an advantage
and have the dominant hand at the side.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously, where I've seen that a lot more with like you say, horsebacks and things like that. And obviously, there was a lot of like muggings going back to Blackadder. What was the what was she called? What's she called in that, Stewie? What was the... Oh... The Shadow.
Oh.
who shot
Oh, the
who shot the
Dark
squirrels?
Nail.
Who
Black
shot?
Nail?
I can't remember. She kept shooting the squirrels out the tree, didn't she? Highwaymen, and things like that. Obviously, when they used to be riding down the road, yeah, they used to obviously want their sword hand on the open side, so that majority of people being right-handed, they could draw the sword and they could yield it on the right-hand side without basically taking their horse's head off, reaching across with their with their left hand. But where do you think this kit? Obviously, you're going to give us some facts. I know you are, Silvers, as to where this is. But the majority of the people now drive on the right, don't they?
65%.
65%. I mean, when you look at a map of where people actually drive, it's most of it is just British colonies, isn't it? It's things that sort of remained in the British Empire. So places like India, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa.
Commonwealth.
Yeah, what is now known as the Commonwealth. Obviously, it used to be British Empire. They were obviously, a lot of it was there, and a lot of it was down to the French. Well, again, I'm throwing too much information, so we won't talk about Stewie's friends, Stewie's biggest hero. I'll bring that little factoid in later. But Putzz, I know you're going to have some take on this. Why do you think 65% of the people on this planet drive on the wrong side of the road?
Well, I think it actually comes down to being right-handed again. And when car manufacturers moved the manual gear shift into the middle of the car, you wanted to operate it with your right hand. So that means you were sitting on the left-hand side of the vehicle. And it also made sense that you were driving with your body down the middle of the road. So you needed to drive on the right hand side of the road in order for you, as the driver on the left hand side, to still be in the center of the road.
I'm quite angry because that makes sense. I think Ford were the first people, weren't they, to actually move the steering wheel from the right-hand side to the left-hand side. I think Ford Motor Company was the first people to do that in terms of cars, what we know today. But that does make sense. But I've driven on the right-hand side of the road. I've driven on the left-hand side of the road. And it doesn't feel as safe driving on the right-hand side. I don't know if that's just because I'm not as used to it as what I am on the left.
Here's the question I have for you. Are you driving a left-handed drive car or a right-handed drive car?
I was thinking the same thing.
Well, my steering wheel is on the right.
Okay, so then you should be driving on the left. But if your steering wheel is on the left, you should be driving on the right. And if you're doing it the opposite way, then of course it feels weird because now you're hanging out in the berm trying to judge where traffic is.
Yeah, I mean, because I'm never a passenger. I'm never a passenger with anybody. I drive everywhere. Whenever we go out with my good lady or anywhere, I always drive. Even when I sit in the passenger seat and I'm a passenger, I am a terrible passenger because I'm not a passenger often enough. So I find myself like looking and thinking, oh, you're very close to that car. You're very close to that car. And like I blow the air brakes, the imaginary brakes. It drives my good lady insane because when we start when we start to approach like a roundabout or something like that, my feet goes to the floor to press the brake that isn't there. I am a terrible, terrible passenger. But that's just because I'm so used to being that far away from the other side of the road, I suppose, because I'm driving. And that probably does make sense, Putzz.
Yeah, the other thing I wanted to make.
What was that?
If you're driving.
I missed that. Go on.
So driving on the left, if you are sitting on the left side of your vehicle, right, and you are driving on the right side of the road, when you're pressing the gas and you are doing the manual shift, you're doing all of that with your right foot in the middle of the vehicle, towards the center of the vehicle. But if you are sitting in the right-hand side and you are driving down the left side of the road, okay, you are still doing all of that, but you are now doing with your right foot and brake with your right foot, and now you are using your left arm because the gear shift is now still in the middle. So I contend that actually requires a little bit more skill. However, I think it is more dangerous. And also, I think because your feet are more towards the outside of the vehicle where the pedals are, if you're sitting on the right-hand side of the vehicle and not towards the middle, if you're sitting on the left, then in car crashes, you're more likely to have your feet damaged.
Oh my God! I mean, let's be fair as well.
You are making so much sense, Putzz.
This is killing me. This is killing me. I was expecting you all to say, right, okay, we're going to start. We're going to start a revolution, and we're all going to start driving on the left after this topic. If I'm being honest, but it doesn't seem to be going down that way. Stewie, back me up. Where do you drive in France?
On the right, if he's in France.
I'm going to be honest. I actually couldn't give a monkeys which side I drive on or which side of the car I'm sitting on. It to me, it's all pretty much the same. But I come initially from motorbike riding, then into cars, and one of the big things in motorbike is just gauging your width. You look at a size of a gap and you know whether you can get through it or not. So when I drive a car, I always gauge anything that's coming up by my right hand side, okay, the side that I am closest to the curb. So I look forward, I instantly think, is it big enough, is it wide enough, whatever, and then I get as close as I can to my side because I know the other side's going to be fine. Okay, so based on that, I don't actually mind whether I'm in the middle, on the left or on the right or whatever, because it doesn't matter. I'll always gauge by that particular side. The only time I think that it's a real pain is if you're doing motorway stuff. Which one? Any, either. Is if you've the only time that's a real pain is if you're driving on the incorrect side to the steering wheel. So, for example, if you're in Europe in an English car, or if you're in the UK with a European car, it comes to the overtaking, and especially on motorways, big vehicles, because you can't see. Your car's halfway into the other lane before you can actually see what's coming or not. So you then have to sort of like fall back further and then have to accelerate more to then overtake.
Making it dangerous,
So, you know, and I'm not talking about like the multi-lane motorways or anything like that, but you know, what we in
single
the UK
carriageways,
call the A roads,
single dual carriageways,
like that. That's the only time, to me, I think it's a problem. Any other time, it doesn't bother me at all. I couldn't really care less.
Well, you're a very skilled human being. I think we need to just took a couple of things. Do you know what we mean by curb, Silvers?
We definitely have a term that means curb, but the fact that you're asking tells me that it doesn't mean what I think it means.
He just thinks you don't know what it is.
Yeah. Go on, Candy. What does curb mean?
Are we talking curb with a K as in race courses, as in the inside of a turn?
Curb spelt with a C, but let's move on.
With a C, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, same thing. We spell it the right way.
Yeah, again.
We've established that.
Yeah, we've established that one. Go on, Candy. If I said to you, driving close to the curb, what does that mean?
That's you're getting ready to dump yourself off the road if there isn't a sidewalk there.
Sidewalk.
Sidewalk, or put yourself into the ditch, which is also which was also why we also decided to drive on the proper side of the road. Was from that side of driving on the right side, it was hard to gauge where the ditch was, or where the road actually ended.
You're literally as far away from the ditch as you can be in your lane, though.
Right.
Because if the ditch is on the left-hand side and you're on the right-hand side of your car, but on the right-hand side of the road, you're as far from that ditch as you possibly can be. So you've got a whole width of car to judge before you actually get to that ditch. Whereas if you were on the left-hand side of the car, driving on the left, you could see where the ditch is by just looking at your window.
Yeah, but we know Americans can't drive. When was the last time an American won Formula One? Come on, we know that.
But it was all based around back in the horse and buggy days, where you couldn't judge necessarily how far away the ditch was from the carriage to the edge there, and that's why we shifted over to the other side of the road, so we could actually kind of gauge a little bit better where where the curb or sidewalk or things began there, but also to be able to be able to better gauge when you needed to overtake somebody or pass somebody on either a roadway or another carriage that was broken down. You could see if you actually could make that overtake without running into somebody else coming the opposite direction.
And by the way, curbs or berms or whatever, they actually have a name in the United States. They're called shoulders. They're the shoulders of the road.
Oh my
It
word!
depends on if there's a sidewalk or not. I would say that you're approaching the curb if there's a sidewalk, which is when the pavement is elevated. But if you're just on a regular highway, then yes, you're approaching the shoulder.
Because you call a pavement. A pavement is what we walk on. What you call a sidewalk. I know. Sorry, I did it again. I know I shouldn't do it. But
the pavement is what you drive on.
Absolutely. No, that's called a road.
No,
that's a road. Yeah. Absolutely.
That's what we call the street or the highway.
See, here you can walk on the pavements. So remember this, Stewie. Don't walk on the pavement in the US.
Well, no, because then you'll be jaywalking.
Well, I know. The fact that you arrest people for crossing crosswalks. Oh my God!
Just so that you know what you're doing when you're on it. I'm going to cross now. That's it, and I'm going to walk.
I'd change the name to cross hops or something like that, and make them go. Make them go a cross hop. I'll do it again. Stop doing it. Stop doing it.
That's why the lines that cross the street are lined instead of being the solid line there, so you can play hopscotch across that.
A crossing, yeah.
A crossing. Or a crosswalk. I did it again. I need to stop doing it. I need to stop doing it. It's killing me. So, Stewie, one of your fellow patriots was very, very influential in moving people from the left to the right-hand side. Do you know who it was? One of your greatest ever people?
Bearing
in mind, I am taking the mic.
Yeah, Rowan Atkinson.
Oh, very good. No, absolutely not.
Go on.
Mr.
Which
Bean,
French man are you talking about?
Napoleon.
I was like, are you talking about short stack?
Napoleon. No, he's easily looked over.
Yeah, easily looked over. Napoleon. So,
oh boy.
When Napoleon...
short with a short list of distinguished gentlemen.
Oh, no doubt. So, as Napoleon sort of casually conquered Europe, he made them all swap from the left to the right because that's the side that he wanted people to go on. Even to the point where he took over part of Australia. He sort of conquered half of Australia and not the other half, to the point where half of Australia was driving on the left and the other half was driving on the right. Obviously, as every good country does, they pushed the French out, and then it ended up where they all went back to the left.
I was going to say that could have got interesting at crossings, couldn't they? At the border, the cars just come and no, you go left. No, you go left.
Yeah. The biggest ever car crash was at the cross between Queensland and New South Wales as it crossed over. So it went from
and that's actually why the Canadians drive on the right side of the road, is to make it easier for drivers in the U.S. and drivers from Canada to be on the same side. That happened in the 1920s.
Yeah, because a lot of the places that still drive on the left now that haven't migrated over to the right, because obviously you think from a car manufacturer's perspective, if they're making a car for the UK, they've got to make it right-hand drive. Do you know what I mean? They've got to do that. Where right-hand drive, left-hand drive? Right-hand drive. Whereas, and that works a lot better on islands where they aren't landlocked to the point where they've got to cross borders, across lands. Could you imagine if like different states had different rules? It'd just be pandemonium, wouldn't it, over in the US? If you went from, I mean, these might not.
They do.
Well, true, yeah, but that's
just not road.
Yeah, over the sidewalk. Okay, so
and that is why 65% of people drive on the right instead of on the left, because because they're landlocked and they deal with more people on the right. So that's countries like Sweden recently changed to driving on the right because the European Union required it.
Didn't they change in something stupid like 1979 or something? It was relatively recent.
67.
67. So I mean, so it was actually, in real terms, it's actually quite recent, isn't it, for a big change? And I think I read somewhere that I think it cost them something like 400 million.
120 million.
Oh.
I was just reading.
Chimes.
I did it.
I was just actually reading an article about it, and the night that they did it, everybody on the roads stopped at 4:50 in the morning. They waited for 10 minutes, and then at 5 a.m. started driving on the right side of the road.
Is this the time where they actually banned alcohol for like 2 or 3 days? Or I could be thinking of a different thing, but I think
I don't know anything about that.
I think this was the case where they actually banned. They give like a 2-day bank holiday to sort of alleviate pressure on the roads while the switchover happened, and they also banned alcohol for 3 days. What are you laughing at?
It's just you're thinking they banned alcohol because it was going to really confuse the drunk drivers.
Yeah,
when they were driving.
I know. Not that anybody should be drink driving. We don't condone drink driving.
They're gonna drive down the wrong side of the road regardless of which direction it is.
Yeah,
they were the only ones that were doing it right in the first place.
Yeah.
Especially in their opinion. But I mean, I think that was quite a nice little trick back through history lane. Silvers, have you got any more little tidbits or anything else that you want to mention on this, or has anybody else got any more that they want to throw into the party on driving at the different sides of the road? But I think we can safely say that nobody's going to be changing now, and that reason is going to be financial. The cost for infrastructure for, say, the UK to change to driving on the right, they're never going to do it. It's never going to happen.
I mean, that's not true. There was actually a very recent switch. The island nation of Samoa recently switched to driving on the left, actually, in 2009, and that's because of their close neighbors, Australia and New Zealand. So it's an island nation, but it's close to other island nations that drive on the left.
I know why they did it. So they did it, and this you thought I was going to say something funny and humorous. I'm not. This is actually a real reason. I did know this. Obviously, Samoa is a big rugby country, so I remember reading this. They did this because it was cheaper to import cars from Australia, so therefore all of those were right-hand drive than it was to import from the likes of the US Japan and all them sort of places that are all left-hand drive. So because it was cheaper to import from Australia, they decided to change the road infrastructure to make importing and to try and promote, obviously, that sort of economy. There we go. That's another little fact for you. I forgot I knew that.
And that was very recent too. Like I said, 2009. This is 15 years ago.
Was it that recent?
Yeah.
Wow. But in the Caribbean, that is very close to the United States.
Mm-hmm.
They get all of their cars from the United States, and so they're all left-hand drive. But a significant number of the islands in the Caribbean are right-hand drive on the right-hand road side. And if you are on one of those islands and you're not used to it and you're renting a car, oh my God, it is the scariest because there's no lanes. It's, you're going around a turn. Oh, which side do I need to be on to go around this turn? Holy moly, it is so scary.
That could come back to the British colony thing, because obviously a lot of the Caribbean were British colonies at one point, weren't they? Do you think that's maybe some sort of legacy from there?
Oh, absolutely. Like, we were just in St. Lucia, and definitely that, and we were even in the U.S. Virgin Islands, they drive on the right-hand side.
Wow. Madness, absolute madness. Okay, I think we will leave that there. I quite enjoyed that conversation. I didn't know quite how that one was going to go. We haven't come to a conclusion that one side's better than the other, but I think there's definitely some compelling argument. Go on.
There is actually there's one instance in the U.S. Where both left-hand and right-hand driving does work together.
Really?
In more and more areas, like the like in the Denver area, there's only like 2 or 3 of them, but it's beginning to become more of a commonplace around like highway and interstate interchanges, and it's what's called a DDI intersection, or a diverging diamond interchange, where when you're coming up to the intersection, you're on the right side of the road. So if you're getting on the highway to go one direction, you turn right to go on the highway on that direction. And if you need to go the opposite direction on the highway, the intersection actually crisscrosses twice, where the so starting at the intersection, if you're on the right side of the road, it turns over to the left side of the road to actually allow you to get onto the highway from the left lane without the use of a stoplight. So it actually helps improve the flow of traffic getting on and on the highway in either direction. And then once you're passing back out of that intersection to continue down the road, it crosses back over again. So you're back on the proper side of the road.
Stop saying proper. Okay. Okay.
It's hard to talk about that kind of stuff, Candy, because these Brits don't understand new technology and how that's just improving our lives. Microwaves and stuff like that.
Kettles,
air conditioners,
kettles,
air conditioners, and a porch front iced tea.
Absolutely not. We are not. I'm not going back into that. Use a bloody kettle. Get your barrel of lukewarm water with 500 flies in it off the porch and just use a kettle. It's far easier. Okay, let's move on to our Star Trek topic. Okay, well, I'm quite interested in this one. We are going to be talking about chief engineers. So we're going to be talking the differences. What do we prefer? Do we prefer Scotty? Do we prefer Geordi? Do you know what I mean? Chief engineers, specifically from Star Trek, they play such an integral role. They play a huge role within the series. They are not typically bridge officers, are they? They always live down in the bowels. They normally have slightly different uniforms, like they have rolled up sleeves and things like that. These are the people doing the dirty work, even though they're relatively senior officers. And I think what we should do, just have a start off with, let's just talk about some of our favourite chief engineers. Now, I'll start. My favourite chief engineer of all has to be Geordi, because he was the first one that I sort of came into contact with, and he is still my favourite to this day. I never grew up with Scotty, and I have grown a massive affection for Scotty, but Geordi for me was a great balance, and it was nice to see him progress through the ranks from being a helmsman in Series 1 to moving into engineering to taking over, obviously, as the chief engineer. And I just think he delivered that really well. I thought it was a really good balance between a bridge officer and the chief engineer, and I thought he played a really good part. Stewie, who was your favourite engineer?
I've got an honourable mention, but I'll leave it to the end, and that's only because it's only really valid for a small segment. But my main one, I think, has got to be B'Elanna Torres.
Yeah, sounds right.
Because I'm a big fan of strong female characters in shows, films, and stuff like that. Anyway, and I just like
the Frenchman in
general. I like to, yeah, this is a Frenchman, and it's her rebellious side as well. The take no crap, all that sort of, and she was a bloody good engineer as well.
I mean, as a character, she was very, very chalk and cheese among the other characters, wasn't she? Do you know what I mean? You either liked B'Elanna or you didn't. And I mean, I always liked her as a character, and I liked her feisty nature and her ability to stand up to the hierarchy as well. Because a lot of them didn't, did they? Do you know, if something wasn't possible, she'd say, "Well, I can't do that." Not, "Yeah, I'll try and do that for you, Captain." Yeah, do you know what I mean? She just said, "No, you can't do that," and then move on to some. Yeah, you can't.
Although she didn't say it very often, though, because she could do it a lot of the time.
Very skilled. Yeah, really, really skilled. I think it was good. And that was like one of the main integrations, apart from Chakotay, she was one of the main integrations into the crew, wasn't she, from the Maquis into the Starfleet crew. That she was like the second senior Maquis officer, wasn't she, in the end?
Yeah, I mean, she was Chakotay's right-hand woman, wasn't she, really?
Yeah.
Pretty much at the time. So, for all of those reasons, she's probably my fave.
What about you, Candy?
I mean, my favorite. I mean, like Geordi. I mean, he was a great engineer. Didn't really have anything like spectacular to his career the way like Scotty did. But one of my favorite engineers in the entire kind of Star Trek ethos would be Jet Reno, who was the lead engineer on the Starship Discovery throughout the Discovery series. And just being able to, she was kind of like the MacGyver, if you will, of the Star Trek universe, where it always seemed like she could put together something or fix something using the most ragtag or random object on the ship to keep the ship going.
Without doubt. And that leads into somebody else that I think I really like, but I'm not going to mention them because I think somebody else may end up mentioning them. But no, I totally agree. And obviously, Discovery was a strange one, wasn't it? Because obviously, it went from one century to the other. It was prattling about with new technologies and things like that nobody else had. So there wasn't a blueprint, was there, for working with Discovery because of the spore drive.
And just having like you said, like the huge jump in 1,000 years between the original timeline and the new timeline, where like essentially playing catch up in a lot of instances.
Yeah, because obviously, I mean, a thousand years, you think where technology's gone in our last thousand years. Imagine when we've got, obviously, a full science fiction program to actually add some stuff in. I mean, you wouldn't even know where to start, would you? Wouldn't even know where to start with 1,000 years. So she does quite well at integrating into the new century. What about you, Putzz?
Okay, first of all, I don't like Stewie Doo or Candy anymore. They took both of my 2 picks.
we haven't liked them since the start. We just bring them on so I've got somebody to talk to.
It happens a lot.
I do have to preface this with, like, I do have a blind cat as a pet, and his name is Jordy. Jordy is not on my list here. Man, I'm actually going to go for Scotty.
I was going to say,
but
go for the other blind one.
Yeah. I think Simon Pegg did an amazing job with Scotty.
Oh, he did.
So that for me, as far as enjoying watching, the character, since my top 2 were taken, I'm going to have to go with him. With an honorable mention to Miles.
Don't you think, though, Putzz, that the cast of the Kelvin movies were cast so well that none of them really insulted the original character? They were always either an improvement or just as good as, and they played the characters so well that it felt familiar yet new.
Absolutely. I went in watching those movies and I was like, these are like, I don't even want to say a better version, but it was like, man, you can really tell, Chris Pine's, Kirk grows up to be, Shatner's Kirk, and all of them, you can really look at them and go, oh, I can see how you're going to become this person. You're going to become this. Yeah, it was well done.
Nobody will watch one of the Kelvin movies who is a hardened TOS fan and not like the renditions from that cast. And I think I think the writing, the casting behind that was just so well done that like I said, it's probably 80% of what makes the movies. The fact that the characters are familiar. We don't have to learn new characters. We know who they are and we can see the future versions because we've been watching them for 50, 60 years or whatever. We know what they're going to be. And I think that was one of the great parts of the movie. I agree. Silvers, what do you think?
I have to go with Miles here. It's an obvious choice. He is not only the chief engineer for a ship, but an entire station, one that was not originally of Federation build, built by the Cardassians, and he is able to do so much with that station that hosts so many other ships as well, and he's able to take his experiences to the Defiant when that is in action as well.
Oh, I agree. And do you know one of the best things about Miles is I think that he was written as quite a funny character. He had some really funny, some really good interactions. He had fantastic depth to his character as well. Obviously, we've known Miles, haven't we, since TNG days when he was just a basic transporter chief. So similar to what we saw Geordi, we saw him progress up and end up becoming a chief engineer. Bearing in mind he was a chief engineer and he wasn't a commissioned officer. That's probably the only time in Star Trek that that's happened from memory. where it's a non-commissioned officer who's the chief engineer of something as big as Deep Space Nine, and then the chief engineer of a starship as well in the Defiant. But I think Chief O'Brien, I just think he was written so well. I think Colm Meaney plays an absolute blinder, and I think he is one of the absolute Star Trek legends of all time.
And there were some dark moments too. There was the episode where he lived a life of prison in his mind, and that was such a dark episode, but it gave his character a lot of depth, and it really changed the perception of the character after that episode, even for a continuing episode, because it didn't really happen in real life, but it was all in his mind, so he thought it was all real.
Yeah.
And
he slept on the floor, didn't he, when he came home, because that's where he'd been used to sleeping. He even got out of bed with Keiko, didn't he, and slept on the floor, because that's where he got used to when he couldn't get comfy in a bed. Here we go. I've got my trivia. You've just given me my trivia. What is the name of Miles's? Can anybody get this? Anybody on the panel? What is the name of Miles's cellmate from that episode?
Jeez. I have no idea.
No idea.
Marvelous. So anybody, nobody got it quickly, so I'm going to move on. Anybody thinks of it, drop us down in the comments. Let us know on Discord. What was the name of Miles's cellmate on that episode of Deep Space Nine, where he basically lives a full life of imprisonment, and it turns out that it was only 3 minutes. I don't think it was 3 minutes. I think it was a little bit longer than that, but I was just exaggerating for dramatic effect. Okay, I think there's a couple that we haven't mentioned. I've been around everybody. There's a couple that we haven't mentioned that I think we need to talk about. And one of them is going to be, I thought Candy was going to mention this as our resident Enterprise buff, and that was Trip. Do you know what I mean? Trip Tucker, I thought Trip Tucker was absolutely astounding because he, very similar to what Candy was saying about in Discovery, he was doing it for the first time. I mean, the first Warp 5 ship out in space, the first people to go out and do first contact super, super regularly, because they had no idea what was coming. They had no idea what weaponry was going to be thrown at them. They didn't have loads of the technology that we've got. I mean, you think the transporters in Day One, you've mentioned this on a previous episode, Silvers, they were just used for cargo, weren't they? And obviously he was very instrumental in making it safe for obviously humans. He added a load of safety protocols and stuff to that. So there's so many things that was good. Go
on. He was writing the manuals before there were manuals.
Yeah. Probably basically a lot of the stuff that we see Geordi and B'Elanna and Chief O'Brien doing, I bet some of them come from the Trip Tucker handbook, dealing with that first Warp 5 engine. So, no, absolutely, I think that's a very number one. And I thought Putzz might have mentioned this, obviously talking about blind ones. It seems to be a bit of a theme, doesn't it, with blind chief engineers. There's Hemmer as well. Does anybody want to take the lead and talk about how good Hemmer was, even though I was quite sad, based on the last episode, we was quite sad that he obviously passed away a little bit quick, didn't he?
Yes.
That's the end of that then. So fantastic. That's the end of that. I didn't really into that one very well. So, but no, I did like Hemmer. I did really like Hemmer. I thought he was Jesus. Do you know what? I'm even going to leave that in. Nobody wanted to talk about Hemmer. It's because everybody's that sad that he passed. Everybody was that sad that he passed away.
He had one season of backstory. Like that's hard to get a connection. So it's like it's definitely sad that he was removed from the series, but it's harder to gain a connection to.
Yeah, they didn't give him enough time for you to become invested, did they? I mean, Silver's is quite right there. You liked him as a character. He was there, but it was just too quick, and it was too quick to matter.
I thought Silvers would have connected, though. I thought Silvers would have connected because he's a right miserable get, isn't he? Do you know what I mean? I genuinely thought Silvers would have connected really, really well with him.
Wow.
Wow. Shots fired.
Shots fired.
Pew, pew.
I don't consider myself to be that miserable. Thank you very much.
No, you're not.
I'm far more miserable.
Yes, you are, but God, why do I pick you people? Why do we pick you? To be fair, I think you chose me, actually. Okay. Okay, anything else?
I can go if you don't want me here.
No, absolutely not. Stay exactly where you are. We will be knackered without you. So has anybody got anything else that they want to add on engineers in general? Obviously, I give a brief backstory to the actual engineering role and where that sort of plays. But anybody got anything else on chief engineers, on anything that you want to mention?
Yeah, Putzz will probably be happy that I didn't mention my honourable mention because it was actually Scotty, but it was also the Kelvin Scotty. I mean, I like him as an actor anyway.
Me too.
He's so good. But it was that bit where they meet him in that outpost for the first time, and he's sitting there with his little pet thing.
Keenser.
And
Sir.
yeah, him.
Little
I
pet
just don't
thing.
feel comfortable saying Keenser.
Get down. Get down.
And he's sitting there, and you the whole idea of the teleportation at warp speed and this, that, and the other, and you just think, oh my god, and this is all happening now, and you're getting it. And it's when he first gets onto the bridge, and he goes, exciting, like that. I just love it, absolutely love it.
Yeah. No, go.
I'll tell you this: a honorable mention needs to go to. Oh, and it just slipped out of my mind. Oh, I was laughing so hard. Forget it. I'm done.
Stamets?
No.
I'm going to leave this pause in as well.
While Putzz slowly
he
loses his
doesn't
mind.
want to. He doesn't want to edit this out.
There can't be anything left.
I mean,
There can't be anything left. Have we got-
I guess maybe like a little bit more stretched term.
Barkley.
Yeah, I was gonna say like
Barkley.
I was gonna,
Broccoli.
actually was gonna say Barkley.
Yeah.
Does he count as
Being-
a chief engineer?
No, he was just
Not as a chief engineer, no, but as an engineer. It wasn't. Was it chief engineer specifically?
no.
Well, okay, we'll span
Or
it a
did you
little
say
bit to
engineers?
engineers. Go on, tell us about
Yeah.
Lieutenant Broccoli Putzz. What do you like about him?
Just like that, he was so human, right? Like you could see the flaw in everything, and he actually was brilliant. He was everything he did was absolutely brilliant. It was always like shoved under the no, not yet, Reginald, not yet, Reginald. Sit down. But I just love it. It's almost like Harry Kim was always an ensign, right? Like
Yeah.
it's kind of genre, and I would be remiss if I couldn't say give a shout out for my main man Reg.
Yeah, and I mean, Reg explored probably a few things that nobody else did. We had Nog with the like holodeck addictions, but mainly that was all down to Barkley, wasn't it? Making his little funky programs that had Deanna in them and his Robin Hood versions of Picard, where Picard was an idiot and all that sort of thing. Jerry, so that was good. And then he had transphobia, I don't think I'm allowed to say that. Transportophobia. He had that, didn't he? Christ almighty, I need to edit that out. Transporter phobia. He didn't like to get transported anywhere. He didn't like getting transported anywhere. And he was petrified of that. And let's be fair, who out of all of us would be comfortable going and standing on that, knowing full well that we're going to be split into a million pieces, basically killed and then re-put together somewhere else? Would we all just jump and do that? Or would we all be a little bit skeptical?
I'd push you forward first.
Oh, thanks.
You'd at least get rid of that cold that's been hanging on for the last week or two.
True. Yeah, they should be able to use it for that. But no, I totally agree. I think Reg is a very, very good honourable mention as an engineer. He was very pivotal. He was great in TNG. Obviously, he was pivotal to getting Voyager home and all that sort of thing. So it was nice to see him span across a couple of different things. And obviously, his relationship with B'Elanna went a little bit further than that as well. So that was quite nice. Okay, thank you so much, everybody. We are available, remember, on all major podcasts platforms. So please don't just listen to us today. Make sure that you download it and press the little bell icon so that you get notified when we update new episodes of the podcast, and leave us a 6 out of 5 star review if you are able to do that. Join our Discord. You can get all of the great tools which are created by Stewie Do and all the charts that are obviously made by Silvers as well. You can get all that on our Discord, and that's where you can chat to us as well. All your feedback is welcome. Remember, we do this for you. Yes, we do this for our entertainment as well. I don't know why I do it, but we do. We do it for our entertainment. But please, please, please send us all of your feedback. We want that. Check out itslube.com and consider becoming a member and supporting financially the show at itslube.com by becoming a member at either the $3 tier or one of the high ones if you feel absolutely able to do so, and that would be absolutely amazing. I want to say a massive thank you to everybody who is here today. Thank you to Silvers, thank you to Stewie, thank you to Candy, and thank you to our special guest, the Professor himself. Thank you so much, Putzz. I really, really appreciate it. And remember, everybody, go pick up a t-shirt at itslube.com as well, because we've got some fantastic merch there created created by Candy White. I'm going to thank everybody who already is a member. So I'm going to say a massive thank you to Minnie, Mabel, Antares, Sorella, Deja, Trek Diva, Andy, KKC, Moth, Dr. Iron Chef, and Star Ocean. Thank you so much, everybody. And our latest members who have just joined us, Virtual Army, SSJ, and TX Guy. Thank you so much for becoming the most recent members to our membership program as that grows. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. It's been an absolute pleasure. And remember that absolutely everything is better with Lou. Take care and have a wonderful day.
Go farming.
Get those bales done, son.
Jesus.
Yep.